Where next for ad tech does everything really have to be this complicated? I love the title of this track because it implies that there's an aspect of unnecessary complexity in the TV ad ecosystem, particularly as it pertains to involving ad tech. But if you work in digital, I think you know there's some complexity inherent in how we get things done, right? It's the nature of automation. It's whether it's you're making deals in PMPs, ad verification, making lookalikes. Some of this is complicated, right? But I think some would say that much of the complication is introduced by platforms like yours that sit between the buyers and the sellers. So maybe we start by telling us what MadHive does and how it complicates things.
Okay. Yeah. So MadHive is we're kind of a unique shape. There's two big pieces to what we do. So one is the white label platform, which is for sales teams that are selling television in the digital side of things. So completely white label. Like MadHive is behind the scenes. We build you your own front end for your sales teams, with all of your branding, maybe a different workflow, supply relationships, data, all of that. I mean, it's your platform. So that's one piece. And then from the nerdy side of things, we're also a video DSP. So all of the campaigns that are coming in through that front end, we turn into line items, and we go out onto, we buy almost entirely CTV. The rest of it is almost entirely video. And we're really good at finding hyper-targeted stuff. So what that has done is made us really good initially at local, because if you need to look for only 3 zip codes and just a couple segments, and you're spending $5,000 spread over 30 days, that's a really hard problem, and we're very good at doing that. So local is where is where our base is, the local broadcasters, channel partners, those sorts of things. But really, we're expanding to anybody who has that sales team that needs to go and buy on connected television.
So I think it's safe to say you're sell side centric, right? Or you serve.
We're a DSP for yeah.
You serve
for publishers.
You kind of serve publishers, and you serve the media seller, if you will.
Yeah, in some ways.
Is the intersection of ad tech and TV too complicated for them? And if so, sort of what's the biggest area of friction on that side that you're experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think it's okay that ad tech is extremely complex, right? If we're going to bring anything to television, there's a tremendous amount of data and a lot of interesting things. But the biggest thing that I think we bring is a marketplace, a really dynamic marketplace, and that's the exchange. And in the exchange, there are other advertisers that normally wouldn't be able to buy on broadcast TV. There are other kinds of sellers and publishers who are offering video inventory that's not necessarily the 60-minute TV show. So that's what we bring, and it's incredibly complex. We see something along the lines of 10 million queries per second, so 10 million ad opportunities. We're sorting through all that. So that's okay. And that's what we need to do. One of the nice things about MadHive is we're anchored in a very, very simple transaction, and that is typically the local seller who's been selling television for a long time, is in one of the major metros, and they have relationships with advertisers who've been buying the local news for 10 years, and they're sitting in the auto dealer's office, and they pull us up on the iPad and say, okay, you've been buying the local news because you want to go after the people in this zip code, people in this demographic. Well, we can find that for you digitally. And so we have to simplify it down to the core of what they're really looking for as a TV advertiser who's looking for the digital equivalent. Which means we focus on, well, what are your parameters? What are the kinds of things that you want to make sure that your brand is going to do really well with? What's the attribution you're looking for? What's the outcomes you're looking for? And then take most of the optimization stuff and stick it in the algorithm. They don't need all of that. We want to be able to speak TV, but still have the complexity and be able to leverage all of that so that we can find them the best supply and demand match.
So you said outcomes in particular. I think local advertisers, well, all advertisers are focused on outcomes, but I would
Yeah.
imagine that local advertisers in particular, like if I'm a local auto dealer, I want someone to come to my dealership. If I'm a, you know, a store, I want someone to come into my store. Is it complex to sort of map and deliver those outcomes to the advertiser then?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I'm the product guy, so I'm like, yeah, it's
That's
complex.
what was,
It is, but it's also kind of, I don't know, additional to what they're expecting from TV, right? So you know, TV, I mean, it's obviously very sophisticated. They know who they're trying to reach. They know they want people in a certain area who are going to buy their cars and not, you know, someone else's. So, you know, there's that. And if we can come in there and also say, well, at the household level, you know, there was, you know, footfall attribution. So somebody saw your ad several times, and then they went to, you know, that car dealership. So maybe they test drove a car. You know, there's a lot of that sort of interesting things that you can add to the conversation. You know, brand lift, and you know, I mean, there's all those different pieces that a lot of these advertisers haven't had the pleasure of being able to like be exposed to before. But we have to, as ad tech, be careful not to completely flood them with, you know, all of the data that we have and have them try to sort through it. We have to be very clear about what's important.
so you are a product guy. You know, given your purview of your product and the product roadmap, is it just a hazard of the course? Do we just have to accept, or does that buyer just have to accept? It's going to be messy. It's going to be murky, as some people talked about, or are there opportunities to make it less complicated?
Yeah, no, I think it's our responsibility to make it less complicated. I mean, as like ad tech, I've been in connected television for about 10 years now. And you know, the ad tech before that had to really reinvent itself, and we're still reinventing ourselves for what makes sense in a connected television environment, in a video environment, in a brand environment. That's not what we originally, and I was there, originally built this stuff for. So we have to kind of go through and just sort of relook at everything we do.
Wait, so let's go back. What was it built for then?
It was
And
built.
what was CTV 10 years ago? And what was CTV 10 years ago?
I mean, CTV, you know, originally it was just like, well, let's just try to get an ad that's going to deliver, and you know, not the one that was built for the phone, and you know, because it's gonna be 3 feet tall. So there was like some of that stuff that we had to like really work through. What was your question?
Just sort of, you said you've been in it for 10 years. I was like, oh my God, what was CTV 10 years ago? Did we even,
Yeah.
It was dongles and sticks and that kind of thing, and terrible ads probably.
Yeah. No, I mean, there were a lot of different things that we had to like work out then.
So what are some assumptions about kind of the video ad sales process or the planning from ad tech that can be challenged as we're trying to kind of move to the TV world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that conversation is still happening. I mean, we have to relook at everything we do. Like yesterday, we were talking about frequency, and my mouth wants to say frequency caps, right? Because in display, you know, if you didn't have a frequency cap, suddenly, you know, you delivered 200 banners to some weird web page, and it was all one person, right? So you have to have a cap in there to like make things, you know, going to be okay. When in CTV and television, that makes sense within the ad pod, maybe within the show. You do want to have some caps, but 30 seconds is 30 seconds. That you can't, you know, really overload things. So there's also the idea of frequency threshold, right? And that's one of the things that we see a lot is, you know, especially for a brand advertiser, showing an ad once is not going to help them, you know, guide them to buy a car 6 months later, right? So there is a, you know, we do want this household to understand the brand's message and understand it over time. So frequency is extremely important, but it's not just like, let's take the banner ad thing and put a cap on it so we don't just blow it all out on 2 people. Like it's much more sophisticated, so we have to reinvent that.
I think that's an interesting question though. Like, is it up to you as the platform to determine what that cap is? Is it up to Georgina and her team to determine what that cap is? Is it up to me as the consumer to determine? Because no, if I see the ad one time, I'm not gonna buy that car 6 months from now. But I guarantee if I see that ad 4 times in the same fucking pod, sorry guys, F-bomb, I have a negative brand impression now.
Yeah.
So frequency threshold sounds a little bit more like, oh, we're going to see how much we can piss the consumer off before they smack us again.
Yeah. I mean, the threshold is over 30 days, or over a particular session of 2 or 3 times. So I think one of the things that like we are always like debating is things along those lines. How much of that do we put into the algorithm itself and just say like, look, this is the standard, or this can adapt if we know what their goals are, and how much do we actually expose to the person on their iPad sitting in the office? Like, I mean, some of that, like, yeah, you want to give those controls, and other things, let the robots do that stuff.
So
10 million times a
to
second.
kind of be the nerdy product guy,
Yeah.
hope if I can say that, right?
Nice.
Are there any tools or platforms or protocols on the horizon? They could either be from within MadHive or externally, that you think will have a positive impact on the industry from a reduction of complexity perspective?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that MadHive and then the industry in general. So at MadHive, I mean, one of the things we're looking at is all the different pieces of attribution, what makes sense, and what we can bring into the actual delivery algorithm, so that we can guide where the spend goes within the parameters. So not everyone has something that is attribution and makes sense to put in there, but that's definitely a big piece that we want to focus on. And then the other thing that I think from an industry perspective is fascinating, and somebody brought it up earlier, is OpenRTB 2.6, which is out there, hasn't been fully adopted yet, but that ad call will tell us about the ad pod itself. It'll say, this is 90 seconds. You can buy all 90 seconds, or you can buy a 30-second ad. You can maybe bid a little bit more for the one that comes first or the one that comes last, or differently for the stuff in the middle. And so really understanding the supply landscape helps us to figure out how we can match demand to the supply that we see.
So OpenRTB 2.6, is that like a tech lab?
Yeah, it's
Tech Lab?
IAB Tech Lab. It's the next version of it, and yeah, I mean it's really built for not just video, because there was a couple things earlier, but for television specifically and commercial breaks.
Anybody else have a question for Craig?
Guess I covered it all.
I think we did.
All right,
Yeah, thank you so much, Craig.
great. Thank you.